Good morning, pupils. I hope you all enjoyed your weekend. I am Mrs. Ajayi, your host for grammar. For the previous week, I have been teaching you how to change different sentences from direct speech to indirect speech, that is, reported speech. I gave you the rules for statements, interrogative sentences, and exclamatory sentences. Today's teaching will be based on reported speech for imperative sentences. That is, how we change an imperative sentence from direct speech to indirect speech. What is an imperative sentence? An imperative sentence is a sentence that asks you if it is a command, a request, an advice, or a suggestion. The reported speech imperatives differ in structure to other reported speech sentences. Like I said, imperatives are commands. For example, keep quiet. Request, please close the window. Advice, go and lie down. Suggestions, take the test next year instead. Here are some further examples using the imperative sentences above, showing them in direct speech and indirect speech. That's the previous word we used here, keep quiet, please close the window, go and lie down, take the test next year instead. So we're going to be checking those imperatives in direct and indirect speech. The direct speech, she said, keep quiet. Please close the window, the teacher said. He told her, go and lie down. She said, take the test next year instead. Now the reported speech for these imperative sentences. The first one, which says she said keep quiet, we have she instructed me to keep quiet. That's the reported speech. The next one, please close the window, the teacher said. Then the reported speech will be having, the teacher asked me to close the window. The next, he told her to go and lie down. She advised them to take the test next year instead. Now listen to this. Reporting verbs for imperatives. That's the verbs that we use for imperative sentences. In normal reported speech, the common reporting verbs are said and told. That's the ones we've been using previously for exclamatory sentences, for statements, and the one we used for the other sentence. We've been using said and told. For example, she said she was tired. He told me I should come tomorrow. Those are the common verbs we use. But I need you to say this, that there are many more verbs. There are many more verbs, however, that are used with reported speech imperative. Some are for orders. That's the verbs that we use for imperative. Some verbs are for orders, while others are for polite requests. The verbs we use for polite requests: advise, urge, ask, remind, request, beg, suggest. The verb we use for orders, we have tell, order, instruct, command, forbid, demand, insist. I need you to take note of those words with asterisk. That's those words that are having star at the back, in front, So I'm talking about suggest, demand, and insist. And let's move forward to see what they're talking about other verbs. Here are some examples of reported speech imperative using these verbs, these particular verbs we have in here, aside from the one in asterisk. For polite request. My doctor advised me, that's the reported speech for it. My doctor advised me to sleep more. The government urged the people to use less water. Take note of those words that are darkened. That's those words that are darkened, having a very dark color. Advised, that's the verbs, and urged. She asked me to join her on holiday. They reminded us to put our seat belts on. He requested the guests to vacate their rooms. He begs her to stay. For others, John told his brother to change direction. The boss orders me to work harder. She instructed them to learn the alphabet. The general commanded his soldiers to obey. Take note of the word that has been darkened. These are the particular verbs we use when we're reporting an imperative sentences. So whenever you're changing an imperative sentences to indirect speech, you need to ask yourself either if the sentence is a request or if it is an order. When you give an order, it looks as if you're having a commanding tone in your voice whenever you're giving an order. So you ask your question if it is an order or a request. So if it's an order or a request, you can use any of these verbs to report in your reporting speech. Alright, let's proceed. Remember I asterisk some particular words in the request and order: suggest, demand, and insist. Okay, let's proceed. For suggest, demand, and insist, they can be used as reported speech for imperatives. However, they do not follow the same pattern. They do not follow the same pattern we used here. For example, the one I said, he requests the guests to vacate their rooms. John told his brother to change direction. So here, it's a different pattern. The pattern for suggest, demand, and insist is that you add that in front of these verbs. I repeat, you add the word that. So this is how reported speech with this verb will look. Direct speech. She said, study hard to pass your test. That's a request. So you now ask yourself, what kind of word can I use? What kind of reported verb can I use for this kind of sentence? So you just know you know that's what the person is making a suggestion to you. So you now report the speech. You say, she suggested that. You don't say she suggests me to know. She suggested that I study harder to pass my test. Please be very careful when you're changing from direct speech to indirect speech. You might be saying, I wrote suggest and I got it. Put in mind, you have to be very careful of the word you use with suggest. So you have to use the word that together with it. She suggested that I study harder to pass my test. The next one, he said, take a taxi. It's just like an order. That's an order. So the kind of verb you use with it is insist. He insisted that we take a taxi home. So take note, you don't, for these particular verbs we've been using for the two sentences we had here, you don't say she suggests me to study harder. No. You say she suggested that I study harder to pass my test. And you don't say he insisted us to take a taxi home. No, that's wrong. Instead, you say he insisted that we take a taxi home. For negative imperatives in reported speech, when we want to make an imperative reported speech sentence negative, we simply add not. You add not to infinitive. The structure is you have your reporting verb. That's any of the verbs you have I showed to you previously. You have your reporting verb, then you plus your noun or your pronoun that you're having in the sentence. Then you add your not, then you add to your infinitive. For example, put in mind all the ones I talked about here. they are already in a particular having a particular color. She advised me not to come late. Put in mind your reporting verb is in red, the noun or the pronoun is in blue, then your not in black, and you're having the to infinity, that's the other tense that is being added to the word, which is come. Now here are some examples of direct speech change into indirect speech using negative imperative. She said, don't keep talking. Now the reported speech we have, she's passing an instruction to you. She instructed us not to keep talking. The next one, please don't study too hard, the teacher said. That's a request. So the particular verb we use, the verb we use for request, you choose the right verb for it. The teacher asked them not to study too hard. He told her, don't wait up for me. An order, that's an order. He urged me not to wait up for him. The doctor said, don't overeat. That is an instruction. The doctor advised me not to overeat. So whenever you are having this type of sentence, you ask yourself, is it an order or a request? So if it's an order or a request, if I were you, I would just have to list out all the words, all the necessary verbs I will be using for an order or a request. Then I'll be able to choose the right verb. Okay, more examples here. She said to me, please help me. She requested me to help her. The teacher said to him, do not waste your time. The teacher advised him not to waste his time. He said to her, please lend me your camera for one day. He requested her to lend him her camera for one day. Doctor said to him, avoid unhealthy food. Doctor advised him to avoid unhealthy food. The boss said to the employee, get out of the room. The boss ordered the employee to get out of the room. He said to his servant, clean the room. He ordered the servant to clean the room. And that will be all for today. And that's the concluded part for direct and indirect speech. So for your classwork, you click on the link with grammar classwork on Google Classroom. Then you do your classwork. Make sure you read the instructions very well before you answer your question. So see you soon. Take care of yourself and stay at home